It's too bad you don't have Joe Lombardo here to talk about the supercomputer, but I'm going to try to fill his shoes. And I know you're not supposed to do that in the beginning of giving a presentation, but I'm going to give it anyways. That some of the questions that you may or may have, I may or may not be able to answer, but I'll give a little background certainly on UNLV and their economic development efforts, as well as the National Supercomputer Institute that we have on campus, and you've toured some of the switch and innovation that UNLV partners with, and we're excited to be aligning our efforts with Altair to be able to leverage each other's resources to offer more valuable products and services for everyone and access some of our capabilities. So as was mentioned, so I serve as the Associate Vice President for Economic Development at UNLV. We actually have offices at the Innovation Center here, Rob Roy's Innovation Center. They're gracious enough to give us some freebies. And then we're able to use the space, which, as you can imagine, makes it extremely useful to bring people into this space to hold conferences and talk about what we're up to. We have 5 different organizations that report up through the Office of Economic Development. So our tech transfers are pushed, so anything new and novel that's coming out of UNLV, we look to partner with industry to push life-changing products and services. We also house our Economic Development Office, which tries to pull in the community. So anything that we have on campus, we try to open that up the best that we can. Free labor with students, any researchers, some of the resources that we have, and certainly we'll be talking about one that in particular that we have on campus that we're proud of. And then we have the Small Business Development Center. If there's anyone that has a small business or you're working with a small business that you have some type of ownership or control, we help them move forward. We have one of the few student-run venture capital funds on campus that we make investments into early stage startups and technologies. And then we manage the I serve as the executive director also of the UNLV Research Foundation, which its main asset is the park, the UNLV Research and Technology Park down the road. So obviously if you want some additional information and want to move to Vegas, I got a spot for you at the research park. So there's my shameless plug for the day. So I'll go through some of this. And if you have questions, again, I'll try to answer those. So the National Supercomputing Institute at UNLV was actually started back in 1989. Through a grant, $10 million grant that actually wasn't at UNLV. The institute was started outside of UNLV, and then 2 years later it was brought on campus. So Joe Lombardo is the director of that particular organization, so we have assets on campus, and we also have assets at Switch. As you can imagine, the National Supercomputing Institution is a full service organization that we utilize either our supercomputers or clusters, or we have researchers in big data if you need to not only utilize the computers but need to formulate those or ask the right questions. We have individuals that can help set your data up appropriately when it goes into the cluster so you get the right answer out of it. So the mission for excellence in education, research, and supercomputing and its applications, we are the largest in Nevada. So we are the place to come, certainly, if you're engaging with any type of supercomputing capabilities. Okay. In 2014, we moved the facilities to Switch. And part of this move was that we were donated to us, Intel's Cherry Creek supercomputer. So that is, if you went on the tour, it's probably one of the first things that you saw as you walked in, which is I'm a microbiology and chemistry guy. So I'm expecting an entire room of stuff. And so the first time I saw it, I wandered in like, this is not cool. And they're like, no, this is cool. This is really awesome. I'm like, okay, great. So Joe started telling me about the things that it did. Part of that is UNLV wasn't set up for the supercomputer. So we needed to have Switch as a partner to be able to not only cool the device, but have all the appropriate connections. So there's 26,000 computing cores or compute cores, but what's fantastic about the relationship with Intel is it's a waterfall type of relationship. So 26,000 cores will go to 30, will go to 40, will go to 80 at some point in time. So as they develop new technologies, the supercomputer won't become stale. It'll continue to evolve. Again, with partners like Altair and others, we will continue to stay in front of that curve so that we're offering the best supercomputing facilities that we possibly can. The other nice thing that Switch gave to us is they ran a line from the facility that they have at Switch to UNLV. That's a 200 gigabit direct connection. And so we have that on either side. We can go higher than that, but that's currently what we have. So it's, I think NASA, when I deal with them, they always tout that they've got a 100 gigabit line. I'm like, yeah, you suck. I don't say that exactly. And if there's any NASA, my bad. But we have the bandwidth, not only so we have the supercomputer, but the bandwidth to do the appropriate research. Now that won't get you into other areas, obviously, if you're across country. You may need to be here to do some of the research, but that connection has made us one of the most highly connected universities in the country. That line, we're hoping to have a relationship that we'll have out at the research park as well. So that's moving forward, just isn't finalized, and we're in conversation. So if you're out at the park, again, a shameless plug, that same connection to the supercomputing facilities as well as on campus will be available. Okay. So yes, MSI computing challenges, numerous and complex workloads, massive data needs, time-sensitive projects, which is why we moved it out to Switch, which was the premier warehousing center in the world. So as you go on the tour, I don't need to tell you that. We are extremely lucky to have them in Nevada, and they obviously are spreading throughout the world. Quick spotlight on some of the research that we've done using the supercomputer. So the first one I'm more passionate about, and it's not on the slides because I got these from Joe, and so I'm going to tell you one that's off slide that I think is really cool. So not only can we handle extremely large data sets in complex fields, petroleum, bio, engineering, water, mining, what have you, space. One of the cooler projects I was able to be associated with is we have a Center for Gaming Institute on campus. So they come up with new and novel games that we take your money and it funds my kids' education. A lot of the new games that they're coming up with are skill-based. And in order to get games on the casino floor, you've got to have a certain mathematics and a number of renditions and variations, whatever else run. So we have a game that's currently going on the floor that requires a certain number of football seasons to have been run in order to check the math. So if I remember right, it was 5 million football seasons that we ran on the supercomputer that would have taken a really long time, but didn't take a particularly long time to run on the supercomputer that we have here. And so we're able to get this game on the floor quicker, faster, cheaper, more effective, and efficient using the supercomputer. So you'll be able to bet on different games. Yes?
The Lions still never won the Super Bowl. How many seasons?
I didn't check that, but I'm going to guess that that's probably the case. It's being recorded. I should watch my mouth. Obviously, I end up being a bit of a smart butt, and if this gets on camera, but that's okay. We'll move forward. Some of the, at least the more complex ones, if you think about it, is Alzheimer's. So we have the Lou Ruvo Center, who's associated with the Cleveland Clinic that's downtown. So they have a neurodegenerative type of research and development that they're conducting. And so we're able to use the supercomputer to download different genomes that other institutions had or that different repositories had, and are able to use that to generate additional data for them. You know, what plaques are forming, what are the correlations, what questions can we ask, which really, for the most part, one, shortens the time to get to the right answer, one, or two, to be able to access the data in a way that really hasn't been accessed before, at least in Southern Nevada. So reduced overall runtime, fast, easy implementation, powerful, flexible customization capabilities. You can tell this isn't my presentation because I'm reading it. Improved system manageability and extensibility. But a lot of it was that interconnectivity that we brought. That's the entire process of dealing with, again, partners like Altair, Lou Ruvo, our researchers on campus, so we're able to ask the right questions of the supercomputer, have the right connectivity. So from start to finish, there's that value drive all the way through. A couple other ones, quantum dynamics of chemical reactions. I don't know. Awesome. Fracking, I know a little bit more about that, so certainly fluid dynamics, huh? Yeah, microbiology guy. Magnetically dominated jets and gamma ray bursts, I don't know. What I do know, though, is these are all very data intensive. A lot of data, a lot of inputs, a lot of information that takes a lot of computing power to process and get the right information out of those. I know I haven't taken up a heck of a lot of time, but there's some acknowledgments, and certainly am open to any type of questions that you might have of our different capabilities on campus. Yes?
So you mentioned this building is like hosting a lot of like startups. Is there a process like that they can apply for the computing time, and how would the universities like help these startup to use HPC?
Yeah, so yes, and there'll be other means in the future of having that access. So right now, Joe's the contact. And so if you reach out to Joe and say, I have a project, he'll be able to work to implement what we currently have in place, as well as what we're hopefully going to have in place in short order with Altair for the front end. Would prefer to have just a easy interface, whereas right now it's a little bit of a back and forth and GUI and whatever else we need to put together in order to access it. But we do have a lot of the services ready. So if you actually went to Joe, and there's a site on the web, it sucks. The site on the web, I'm going to talk to Joe about this too. So you can access it there, and it has some information that you put in, what do you want to use it for, what your project is, and then we'll get back to you and set up those arrangements. Hopefully in the future it'll be a bit user-friendly, that you can access it, get cranking, don't have to have a lot of human interface time if you don't want.
You know, we went on the Switch tour yesterday, and my fellow travelers in the truck on the way back, it seemed the consensus was, why wouldn't you host your HPC center there? Now, you've been there. There's got to be a catch. Come on, there's got to be some pain in the butt. Something that, you know, what's the real...
Even though I'm sitting in Rob Roy's Innovation Center that's hosted by Switch, I will give you the honest truth. To date, there hasn't been. And I had a can I bring this up? I'm going to do it anyways. There's a large corporation that's in Utah that may rhyme with Adobe that we were having conversations with. And I thought I lied to them. I had a sit down with them, and we haven't done anything with them for sake of clarity. But I sat down and I said, you should host everything down here because I'll save you $500,000 a month. And they went, you're full of crap. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably full of crap. Why don't you come down, take the tour, see what we have to do. But you know, they actually provided this to you on the tour because of buying a lot of the assets of Enron. They actually have some of the contracts with the major carriers. So they've been able to negotiate kind of IT bandwidth and infrastructure that they can save quite a bit of money. So where I thought I was lying ended up being pretty close to the truth. I was like, that's awesome. I didn't have to go back and kind of retract my statement. So to date, no, there hasn't been any catch. It's just been fantastic service, and they're a huge community partner. I mean, they've given us what amounts to millions of dollars in services that we're extremely grateful for. And as you go on the tour, everybody's there. If they're not there, they're going to be up in Reno. If they're not there, they're going to be in Italy. If they're not there, they're going to be in Michigan. They're just a fantastic group to work with, and it's not often that you're able to go in and say, hey, I want to use your services, and like, awesome, here's your payment, but we'll reduce this, so you're almost saving money. That's pretty cool. So we have a good working relationship with them and try to tout them, obviously, as much as we can. Other than everyone, they keep trying to get me tased. Yeah. Which is because the guards go with you, right? Yeah. And so I've got a total jerk in my office that every single time I go over there tries to be like, don't touch this, and you shouldn't be going there, Zach. And, you know, the guards don't take kindly to, you know,
They didn't seem to have a sense of humor.
joking around. So almost been tased.
Hi, I'm Tom Kruger with Intel. Thanks for the plug up there on the Cherry Creek cluster.
So if I said anything wrong, my bad.
No, not. It's well done. Checks in the mail. No, so but wanted to ask you about that. In terms of the eDiversity side of it, UNLV, can you comment on the size of the cluster there? And I know it's separate from what's housed at Switch.
Here's what I'll say. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Although there is a cluster there, I want to say it's a quarter of the size, that we can do some initial research if it needs to take place there instead of using bandwidth on the great and wonderful Intel Cherry supercomputer that we have sitting out at Switch. So we do have capabilities there. If someone comes in and is like, listen, yeah, we may not, and then we can see if it's something that needs to go over there. So we do have some capabilities there, whether they're updated on a regular basis or not, but we can function if it needs to be not lesser. If we need less bandwidth, if we need less computing power, we can do that on campus.
And as a follow-on to that, what are you guys doing to promote the National Supercomputing Institute, even globally, you know, and the prowess of UNLV and what you guys are doing here in Nevada with Switch? I mean, there's shows globally, International Supercomputing next month,
Yeah.
Supercomputing in Denver in November. Are you guys going to be having a presence at those type of events?
Joe will be at those and he gets interviewed all the time. And we're in a few magazines. I'll have to look those up and I can send it to you, but in quite a few magazines as to what the capabilities are. Where we want to go is to be able to have the appropriate interface, which we don't quite have right now. Again, if you go to our website, I'm a bit ashamed up by it, even though I think it's great. We're just moving along. That's what I should say. We're progressing. We just want to have that presence that everyone's just driven there. We want to integrate it into UNLV's top tier conversation. And so you'll see that over the next year or so. It's a major focus of UNLV because who else has this type of asset? Nobody does. So we need to push that more. So we've been busy working on getting the right foundational pieces, testing it out, that you'll see over the next year this ends up being a major push. But we're out there. Joe's in, around, having his conversations, and obviously he's the biggest advocate.
Zach, I have two questions. Number one, could you introduce Ron? Because these people are technical, and if they do have questions about the environment and how they can have access through Altair, they need to speak with Ron. So that's one.
Yes, so I didn't see you there. So that is Joe's right-hand man that knows everything about it. So he probably should have been up for giving the presentation, but
Yeah.
I stole it.
No, you did great. I'm just lurking, so don't worry. The question, to follow up on your question, the main problem that we had on campus is we were running into building limitations on power and cooling. And so the big iron is out at Switch. We do have smaller clusters on campus, and we also house several private clusters for specific research people.
Thank you for saving my bacon.
Second question, there are vendors here, and there are others I know Joe has spoken to over time. What's the process to become a part of that resource at Switch? Do they just talk with Joe? They talk with you? What do they do to participate?
Yeah, to date, we've tried to be a support and service mechanism through the Office of Economic Development. So contact Joe or someone in his shop that may be sitting here. And then depending upon how or what agreements or interactions need to take place, they'll get us involved appropriately. If you have my information and send it to me, more than happy to have those conversations and say, hey, great, we got contacted. So we team up for the most part, but Joe and his team is the one that will drive those interactions because it really ends up being what capabilities can be performed. And then we can work to put the paperwork in place, which obviously is can be a pain or can be pretty smooth depending upon how it goes, to put an agreement around that.
More questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.